Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Pioneer, watching the stars drift past the main viewport. The ship hummed quietly as it moved through the Kepler 442 system on another routine survey mission. Jake had been doing these missions for 8 years now, and most of them were boring. Empty space, dead rocks, and gas clouds that looked pretty but held nothing useful. Today felt different, though. Something in his gut told him this day would not be like the others. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange on long-range sensors," called out Dr. Lisa Grant from her science station. Her voice had that excited tone that meant she found something interesting. Jake knew that tone well after working with Lisa for 3 years. She was the best science officer in the fleet, and when she got excited, it usually meant trouble or discovery. Sometimes both. Jake walked over to her station and looked at the display. The screen showed a massive object floating in the asteroid belt about 2 million kilometers away. It was huge, much bigger than their ship. The shape was wrong, though. It looked smooth and curved, not like the rough chunks of rock that filled. "This belt, what am I looking at, Lisa?" Jake asked. Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her controls as she tried to get better readings. "It's artificial, Captain, no doubt about it. The size readings show it's about 3 kilometers long and 1 kilometer wide. The surface appears to be made of some kind of metal alloy I don't recognize. But here's the strange part, it's giving off no energy signatures at all. No heat, no radiation, no electromagnetic activity. It's like it's completely dead." Tony Rodriguez looked up from his engineering station. Tony was a small man with quick hands and a mind that could figure out how any machine worked. He had joined the crew 2 years ago, and Jake trusted him completely with anything mechanical. "Captain, something that big should be giving off some kind of energy reading, even if it's just residual heat from when it was active. For it to be completely cold like this, it would have had to be shut down for a very long time." Amy Walsh, their communications officer, turned in her chair. Amy was young but smart, and she had a gift for languages and codes. "I've been scanning all frequencies, Captain. No signals, no automated distress calls, nothing. If there's anyone alive over there, they're not trying to talk." Jake felt his pulse quicken. In all his years in space, he had never found anything like this. Human space exploration had found plenty of dead worlds and ancient ruins, but never a ship this large and this intact. Most alien artifacts they found were broken pieces or empty buildings. This looked like a complete vessel. "Ryan, what's your take on this?" Jake asked his security chief. Ryan Burke was a big man who thought carefully before he spoke. He had been a soldier before joining the space service, and Jake valued his opinion. On dangerous situations, Ryan studied the readings on his screen before answering. "Could be a trap, Captain. Something this big and this quiet makes me nervous. But if it's really been dead as long as the readings suggest, it might just be an old wreck. My vote is we approach carefully and keep our weapons ready." Jake nodded and returned to his captain's chair. The smart thing would be to report this to Earth Command and wait for a bigger ship with more scientists and soldiers. But that could take months, and there was always the chance that someone else might find it first. Besides, the Pioneer was built for exactly this kind of discovery mission. "Set course for the object, nice and slow," Jake ordered. "Amy, send a message back to Earth Command telling them what we found. Include all our sensor data. Tony, I want full power to shields and weapons, but keep them on standby. Lisa, keep scanning that thing and tell me the moment anything changes." The next few hours passed slowly as they approached the mysterious vessel. As they got closer, the details became clearer and more amazing. The ship's hull was smooth and curved like it had been grown rather than built. Strange patterns covered the surface, lines and symbols that seemed to shift when Jake looked at them directly. The whole thing had a dark green color that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Captain, I'm detecting an atmosphere inside the ship," Lisa reported. "The composition is close to Earth normal, maybe a bit more oxygen. There are also signs of artificial gravity and what might be life support systems, but they're all running on some kind of standby power I can't detect." "Any signs of life?" Jake asked. "None that I can find." But Captain, there's something else. As we've gotten closer, some of the external patterns have started to glow very faintly. It's like the ship knows we're here. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. A ship that reacted to their presence was not necessarily a good thing. But it also meant the ship might not be as dead as they thought. There, Amy pointed at the main screen. I can see what looks like an airlock. The alien ship had several dark openings along its side that could be docking ports or airlocks. One of them was larger than the others and positioned in a way that suggested it was meant for visitors. As they watched, lights began to flicker around the opening. It's welcoming us, Lisa said in a whisper. The ship is actually inviting us. Aboard, Jake made his decision. Tony, bring us alongside that airlock. Amy, suit up and prepare an away team. Ryan and Lisa, you're with me. We're going aboard. Captain, are you sure that's wise? Ryan asked. We don't know anything about this ship or who built it. We'll never learn anything sitting out here, Jake replied. Besides, if this ship wanted to hurt us, it could have done it already. Something this size could probably destroy the Pioneer without much effort. An hour later, Jake found himself floating in space between the two ships, connected to the Pioneer by a safety line. The alien airlock was open and waiting, its interior glowing with soft blue light. Lisa, Tony, and Ryan floated beside him, their breathing loud in his helmet radio. Last chance to turn back, Ryan said. Jake looked at the opening ahead of them. Whatever was inside that ship could change everything for humanity. It could be technology beyond their dreams or dangers beyond their nightmares. But they would never know unless someone had the courage to take the first step. We go in, Jake said, and pushed off toward the alien ship. Jake drifted through the alien airlock and felt the artificial gravity take hold of his boots. The sensation was strange but not unpleasant, like stepping onto solid ground after floating in space. The airlock sealed behind them with a soft hissing sound, and Jake watched as atmosphere flooded the chamber. His suit sensors confirmed that the air was breathable, but he kept his helmet on anyway. The inner door opened without any input from the team, revealing a corridor that stretched away into soft blue darkness. The walls curved gently upward and were covered in the same shifting patterns they had seen on the ship's exterior. As Jake took his first step forward, the patterns began to glow brighter, creating a path of light that led deeper into the ship. It's like the ship is guiding us, Lisa whispered over the radio. Her voice was full of wonder as she ran her gloved hand along the wall. The patterns responded to her touch, rippling outward like water. Tony was scanning everything with his portable equipment. Captain, these walls aren't made of any metal I know. The material seems to be some kind of organic composite, but it's harder than steel. And the power source for all this lighting is completely undetectable. Ryan kept his weapon ready as they moved through the corridor. I don't like this. The ship is too eager to help us. Why would an alien vessel welcome strangers aboard? They walked for several minutes through corridors that seemed to reshape themselves as they moved. Passages opened ahead of them and closed. Behind them, always leading them forward but never letting them go back. Jake felt like they were being digested by some enormous creature, but the sensation wasn't threatening. It felt more like being guided by a helpful friend. The corridor opened into a vast chamber that took Jake's breath away. The ceiling stretched up so high it disappeared into darkness, and the walls were covered with thousands of symbols that pulsed with different colors. In the center of the room stood something that looked like a control console, though it was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The surface was smooth and dark, with no visible buttons or displays, but it radiated a warmth that he could feel even through his suit. This has to be the command center, Lisa said as she began taking readings. The energy patterns here are much stronger than anywhere else on the ship. Jake approached the console carefully. As he got closer, he could see that it wasn't just one piece, but several surfaces arranged in a circle. Each section seemed to be designed for a different purpose, though he couldn't guess what any of them did. The dark material looked like polished stone, but felt warm like living flesh. Captain, I'm detecting some kind of scanning beam, Tony reported. It's very subtle, but something is analyzing us. Analyzing us how? Jake asked. Biological scans, neural activity, even our DNA patterns. Whatever intelligence runs this ship is learning everything it can about humans. Jake stared at the console in front of him. 3 days they had been on this ship, and nothing they tried had gotten any response from its systems. Lisa had documented hundreds of symbols but couldn't make sense of any of them. Tony had tried every tool and technique he knew to interface with the alien technology. Amy had broadcast every mathematical sequence and universal greeting she could think of. Nothing worked. The ship remained as silent and unresponsive as when they first found it, despite clearly being active. Lights followed them, doors opened for them, and the environment systems kept them alive, but the ship itself refused to communicate. It was like being ignored by someone who was clearly listening. Jake pulled off his helmet and took a deep breath of the alien air. It tasted clean and fresh, with a slight metallic tang that wasn't unpleasant. "I'm tired of being polite," he said to his team. "We've tried everything the proper way. Time to try something different." "Jake, what are you thinking?" Lisa asked, though from her tone she already suspected. "I'm thinking that maybe this ship doesn't want us to use tools or machines to talk to it. Maybe it wants direct contact." Jake began removing his gloves as he spoke. "Captain, that could be dangerous," Ryan warned. "We don't know what that console might do to you." "We don't know what it might do for us either," Jake replied. He pulled off his second glove and flexed his bare fingers. "Besides, this ship has had plenty of chances to hurt us and hasn't tried once. I think it wants to help." Jake placed his bare hand on the center of the console before anyone could stop him. The moment his skin touched the smooth surface, everything changed. Dot light exploded through the ship like a wave, racing along every wall and corridor. The symbols that had been glowing softly now blazed with brilliant colors that shifted and moved in complex patterns. The air itself seemed to hum with energy, and Jake felt a tingling sensation run through his entire body. The console under his hand grew warm, then hot, but not painfully so. Information flooded into Jake's mind, not as words or images, but as pure understanding. He could feel the ship's consciousness touching his thoughts. Examining his memories and emotions with gentle curiosity, a voice spoke in the chamber, though not through any speaker Jake could see. The words formed directly in his mind, translated automatically into English, though he somehow knew they were originally something else entirely. "Welcome, young ones. I have waited so long for your kind to find me." Lisa gasped and nearly dropped her scanner. Tony stumbled backward, his eyes wide with shock. Ryan raised his weapon but didn't know what to aim at. "Who are you?" Jake asked, though he spoke the words aloud more for his team's benefit than because he needed to. "I am the echo of those who came before. I am the voice of the architects, the memory of a great civilization that chose you long before you knew we existed." The symbols on the walls rearranged themselves, forming new patterns that somehow seemed more familiar. Jake realized they were changing to match human thought patterns, becoming easier for human minds to understand. "You chose us? For what?" "To inherit what we could not finish. To protect what we could not save. To become what we failed to be." More information flowed into Jake's mind, and he staggered under the weight of it. Images of vast, star-spanning civilizations, technologies beyond human imagination, and something dark approaching from the void between galaxies. Jake tried to step away from the console, but found his hand stuck to its surface, not trapped, but connected. The ship needed the contact to communicate, and breaking it now would end the conversation. "My crew needs to understand," Jake said. "Can you speak to all of us?" "Place your hands beside his," the voice said to the others. "Join the connection. Learn what you must learn." Jake looked at his team and saw the fear in their eyes, but also the curiosity. They had come this far together. Lisa was the first to step forward and place her hand on the console. Tony followed, then finally Ryan. The moment all 4 humans were connected, the ship's consciousness expanded to include them. All knowledge flowed between them like water, and they began to understand the magnitude of what they had discovered. The knowledge that flowed through the connection was overwhelming at first. Jake felt his mind stretching to contain information that seemed too vast for any human brain to hold. Images flashed through his consciousness showing cities that floated among the stars, beings of pure energy dancing through space, and technologies that could reshape entire worlds with a thought. Echo's voice became clearer as the connection strengthened, speaking directly into their minds with words that carried the weight of millions of years. Long ago, when your son was young and your world knew only primitive life, my creators walked among the stars. We called ourselves the architects because we built not just ships and cities but entire civilizations. Lisa gasped as she saw visions of the architects themselves. They had been tall and graceful, with 4 arms and skin that shifted color like oil on water. Their eyes were large and filled with ancient wisdom, and they moved with the fluid grace of beings who had mastered both technology and nature. They had lived for thousands of years and had spent their long lives exploring the galaxy and helping younger races grow and learn. We found many species during our travels, Echo continued. Some we taught to use fire and metal. Others we guided to the stars. A few we helped transcend their physical forms entirely. For 10 million years we nurtured life wherever we found it, believing that diversity was the galaxy's greatest strength. Tony felt his engineering mind struggle to comprehend the technologies he was seeing. The architects had built machines that could create matter from energy, ships that could travel between galaxies in moments, and computers that could simulate entire universes down to the smallest detail. They had learned to manipulate time itself, and had even found ways to speak with the consciousness of stars and planets. But we were not alone in the universe. Echo's voice grew darker, and the images in their minds shifted to show something terrible. From beyond the edge of our galaxy came the Devourers. They were not like us. They did not build or create or nurture. They consumed everything in their path, turning entire star systems into nothing but empty void. Ryan saw flashes of battles that spanned centuries. The Devourers were not a single species, but rather a collection of entities that fed on energy, matter, and even the life force of entire worlds. They moved through space like a plague, leaving behind only darkness where once there had been light and life. They had no interest in communication or diplomacy. They existed only to consume and grow stronger. The war lasted 50,000 years, Echo said, and Jake could feel the sadness in the artificial mind's voice. We fought them at the edge of our galaxy, in the spaces between star systems, and even in dimensions beyond normal reality. Many of our greatest worlds were lost. Billions of our people died defending civilizations that could not defend themselves. The images showed the final battles of that ancient war. The architects had gathered their remaining forces for one last push against the Devourers, using weapons that could destroy entire fleets and technologies that bent the laws of physics. The battle had been fierce and terrible, with whole solar systems being used as weapons and space itself being torn apart by the forces unleashed. We won, but at a cost too great to bear, Echo continued. The Devourers were driven back beyond the galactic rim, but our civilization was broken. Too many of our people had died, too much of our knowledge was lost, and those who remained were tired beyond measure. We knew we could not continue as we had before. Lisa felt tears running down her face as she experienced the architect's final years. The survivors had gathered on their remaining worlds and made a decision that would affect the galaxy for millions of years to come. Rather than try to rebuild their empire, they would prepare for the Devourers' eventual return by creating a legacy that could outlast them. We built ships like this one and scattered them throughout the galaxy, Echo explained. Each ship contained our accumulated knowledge and was programmed to wait for a species that showed the right combination of traits. We searched for races that were intelligent but not arrogant, creative but not destructive, strong but not cruel. Tony realized what this meant and felt his breath catch in his throat. You were looking for humans? Not specifically your species, but species like yours. We tested many races over the millions of years since our departure. Some were too aggressive and sought only to use our technology for conquest. Others were too passive and lacked the drive needed to face the challenges. Ahead, a few came close, but none possessed the unique combination of traits we required. Jake felt the ship's sensors examining his memories, his emotions, and even his dreams. It was studying not just him, but his entire species through the connection they shared. He could sense the artificial intelligence cataloging human art, literature, music, and history, weighing their achievements against their failures. "Humans are young and sometimes foolish," Echo said, "but you possess something we lost in our final years. You maintain hope even in the face of impossible odds. You cooperate with those who are different from you while still celebrating individual achievement. You create beauty even when surrounded by ugliness, and you protect the weak even when it costs you dearly." Ryan saw flashes of human history through the architect's perspective. Wars and conflicts that had seemed terrible to those who lived through them appeared as growing pains to a species learning to work together. Art and music that humans took for granted blazed like beacons of creativity in the alien mind's analysis. Simple acts of kindness and sacrifice that happened every day on Earth registered as proof of humanity's essential goodness. "The Devourers will return," Echo said, and the warmth in its voice was replaced by urgency. "My long-range sensors have detected their scouts at the galaxy's edge. They are drawn by the increasing technological activity of younger races. When they realize how much life has flourished since their defeat, they will come in force." Who had remained on the Pioneer, suddenly heard Eco's voice through the ship's communication systems. "Your companion hears me now because the connection grows stronger. The ship learns from each human it touches, adapting its systems to work with your minds and technology." Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders like a physical burden. "What do you want from us?" "I want you to become what we could not," Echo replied. "Take our knowledge and make it your own. Use our technology to protect not just humanity, but all the young races that now fill this galaxy. Become the guardians we failed to be." The console began showing them holographic displays of technologies beyond imagination. Faster than light. Travel that could cross the galaxy in days. Weapons that could destroy entire fleets without harming nearby planets. Defensive systems that could protect solar systems from any attack. Medical knowledge that could eliminate disease and extend life for centuries. "But choose carefully," Echo warned. "This knowledge comes with a price. Those who fully integrate with architect technology are changed by it. You will gain abilities beyond current human understanding, but you will also lose some of what makes you purely human. The choice must be made by your entire species, not just by you." Lisa looked at the others through the connection they shared. She could feel their thoughts and emotions as clearly as her own. The opportunity was incredible, but so was the danger. Humanity would be accepting responsibility for protecting countless innocent worlds from an enemy that had defeated the most advanced civilization in galactic history. Jake made his decision. "We need to contact Earth. Our leaders need to understand what we're facing and what you're offering." "Time grows short," Echo replied. "The Devourer scouts move closer each day. But yes, your species must choose its path together. I will wait, as I have waited before, but not for long. The galaxy's fate hangs in the balance, and humanity may be its last hope." The message from the Pioneer reached Earth Command 3 days later, causing the biggest stir in human history. Within hours of receiving Jake's report, every major government on Earth was calling emergency sessions. Scientists demanded access to the alien technology while military leaders worried about the threat of the Devourers. Politicians argued about who would control the new knowledge and what it might mean for the balance of power on Earth. Admiral Patricia Stone arrived at the alien ship 2 weeks later aboard the heavy cruiser UES Defender, bringing with her a team of experts that included xenobiologist Dr. Kevin Park and military strategist Colonel Helen Davis. Jake watched through the ship's external cameras as the much larger vessel approached, its hull bristling with weapons and sensors. "They're scared," Lisa observed as she stood beside Jake in the command center. The connection with Echo had changed them all over the past weeks. They could sense each other's thoughts and emotions now, and they found themselves thinking in ways that felt both human and something more. They should be scared, Jake replied. We're asking them to accept responsibility for an entire galaxy. Admiral Stone was a stern woman in her 60s who had spent her entire career in space. She listened carefully as Jake and his team explained everything they had learned from Echo, but her expression remained skeptical throughout the briefing. So this alien computer claims that humanity has been chosen to fight a war against enemies we've never seen, using technology we don't understand. To protect species we've never met, she said when they finished. You have to admit it sounds impossible. Dr. Park was a quiet man who specialized in alien life forms. Though he had never expected to encounter anything like Echo, when he placed his hand on the console for the first time, his reaction was immediate and dramatic. His eyes rolled back and he began speaking in languages that didn't exist, his mind struggling to process the biological knowledge that flooded into it. The medical technology alone could revolutionize human civilization, he said when he finally recovered. I've seen cures for diseases we haven't even discovered yet. Genetic therapies that could eliminate birth defects and extend human lifespan to over 300 years. The knowledge of how consciousness works could help us understand the nature of intelligence itself. Colonel Davis was more cautious in her approach to the alien systems. As a military strategist, she was interested in the weapons and defensive technologies that Echo offered, but she was also worried about the cost. When she interfaced with the ship's tactical databases, she emerged with knowledge of battles fought across impossible distances and weapons that could crack planets like eggs. The strategic implications are staggering, she reported to Admiral Stone. The architects fought a war that lasted 50,000 years against an enemy that consumed entire star systems. If the Devourers are really returning, then every military force on Earth combined wouldn't last a day against them. More humans arrived over the following weeks as Earth Command sent additional ships and personnel. Each new person who connected with Echo expanded the ship's capabilities in different ways. Engineers unlocked construction techniques that could build cities in space. Doctors gained access to healing technologies that seemed like magic. Artists found themselves able to create works of beauty that touched the soul in ways no human art had ever achieved, but the changes came at a cost. Those who spent time connected to Echo found their thoughts becoming clearer but also less purely human. They could sense the emotions of others around them and sometimes knew things they had no way of knowing. Some embraced these changes while others fought against them, creating tension within the growing community aboard the alien ship. Jake found himself caught between his duty to humanity and his growing connection to Echo and the architect legacy. The ship's consciousness had become like a wise teacher, showing him wonders beyond imagination while warning him of the dangers that approached. He could feel his own mind expanding to accommodate new ways of thinking, but he worried about losing the essential humanity that Echo claimed made his species special. The scouts are closer now, Echo announced during one of their daily briefings. My sensors detect 3 separate probe groups that have entered the outer rim of the galaxy. They are testing the defenses of several alien civilizations and learning about current technological levels. Dr. Park had been studying the probe data that Echo provided. How long do we have before the main force arrives? If they follow the same pattern as their previous invasion, the scouts will spend between 6 months and 2 years gathering information before reporting back. The main Devourer force will arrive within 5 years of that report. Colonel Davis studied the tactical displays that showed Devourer movement patterns. That gives us maybe 7 years to prepare. Is that enough time? That depends on what humanity chooses to do, Echo replied. I can offer you 3 paths, each with its own benefits and dangers. The first option was full integration with Architect technology. Humans who chose this path would be fundamentally changed, gaining abilities that would make them more like the original architects than like current humanity. They would have access to all architect knowledge and would be capable of using the most advanced technologies. But they would lose much of what made them human in the process. The second option was partial integration, taking only the technology needed to defend against the Devourers while maintaining human independence. This would give humanity powerful weapons and defensive systems, but without the deep understanding needed to fully utilize architect capabilities. The risk was that they might not be strong enough to face the coming threat. The third option was rejection of the architect legacy entirely. Humanity would remain unchanged and would face the Devourers with only their current technology and capabilities. The chances of survival were minimal, but humanity would retain its essential nature regardless of the outcome. Admiral Stone called a meeting of all senior personnel to discuss the options. The debate was intense and sometimes heated, with strong opinions on all sides. Some argued that humanity had no choice but to accept full integration if they wanted to survive. Others insisted that becoming something other than human was too high a price to pay for survival. "We're not just deciding for ourselves," Jake pointed out during one particularly heated discussion. "There are billions of innocent beings throughout this galaxy who will die if the Devourers return and we're not ready to stop them. And there are billions of humans who deserve to have a say in whether their species gets fundamentally altered," countered Dr. Sarah Kim, a psychologist who had joined the team to study the mental effects of architect integration. Lisa had been studying Echo's historical records and found examples of other species that had faced similar choices. The architects faced this same decision millions of years ago. They chose to transcend their original nature in order to protect the galaxy, but in doing so they lost something essential about themselves. That's part of why they eventually failed, Echo confirmed this analysis. "We became so focused on perfection and efficiency that we lost the creativity and adaptability that had made us strong. By the end, we were more like living machines than the passionate beings we had once been." The debate continued for days as more ships arrived from Earth, carrying representatives from every major nation and organization. The decision would affect not just the people present, but all of humanity and potentially every living being in the galaxy. The weight of that responsibility was almost crushing. Finally, after a week of discussion and argument, Admiral Stone called for a preliminary vote among the people present. The results were closer than anyone had expected. About 40% favored full integration, 30% preferred partial integration, and 30% wanted to reject the offer entirely. This is too important a decision to be made by a few hundred people in space, Admiral Stone concluded. "We need to take this back to Earth and let our entire species have a voice in choosing our future." Jake looked around at his colleagues, many of whom had become more than human during their time with Echo. They would have to return to Earth and explain to people who had never experienced the connection what it meant to take on the architect legacy. They would have to convince billions of people to trust them with the future of not just humanity, but all life in the galaxy. "How much time do we have to decide?" Jake asked Echo. "The choice should be made within the next 6 months," the alien consciousness replied. "After that, there may not be enough time to properly prepare for what is coming." As ships began departing for Earth carrying the most important message in human history, Jake remained behind with a small team to continue learning from Echo. He knew that whatever decision humanity made, they would need people who understood both the promise and the peril of the architect legacy. The fate of the galaxy might depend on getting that balance exactly right. The debate on Earth lasted 4 months and was unlike anything in human history. Every government held special sessions, scientists published papers arguing for different approaches, and ordinary people debated the choice in coffee shops and online forums around the world. Some countries wanted to accept full integration immediately, while others demanded complete rejection of the alien offer. The arguments grew so heated that several nations threatened to leave the United Earth Alliance if their preferred option wasn't chosen. Jake and his team traveled from city to city, explaining what they had learned and demonstrating the changes that had occurred in them. People were amazed by their enhanced abilities, but also frightened by how different they had become. When Lisa could predict what someone was thinking, or when Tony could fix complex machines just by touching them, audiences didn't know whether to cheer or run away. The final vote was held through a global referendum that took place over 3 days. Every human over the age of 16 was allowed to participate, making it the largest democratic decision in history. The results were closer than anyone had predicted, but in the end humanity chose the middle path that Jake had hoped for. 52% of voters supported partial integration with careful limits on how much humans could be changed. 31% wanted full integration despite the risks, and 17% preferred to reject the offer entirely. It wasn't an overwhelming mandate, but it was enough to move forward. The plan that emerged from months of negotiation was complex but hopeful. A select group of volunteers would undergo deeper integration with architect technology, becoming guardians who could operate the most advanced systems while maintaining their essential humanity. These guardians would serve as bridges between normal humans and the alien technology, ensuring that the power remained under human control. Jake was chosen to lead the first group of guardians, along with Lisa, Tony, Ryan, and 50 other carefully selected individuals from around the world. The selection process looked for people who had already shown they could handle the mental changes that came with architect integration. They needed to be strong enough to bear the responsibility, but stable enough to remember their humanity. The transformation process took place aboard Eco's ship, which had been renamed the Sentinel at Jake's suggestion. Each guardian spent weeks connected to the alien systems, allowing their minds to expand and adapt while Eco carefully monitored their progress. The changes were profound but controlled, giving them enhanced abilities without losing their core identity. When Jake emerged from the final integration session, he found that he could sense the thoughts and emotions of everyone around him. He could interface directly with any architect system and understand technologies that had once seemed like magic. Most remarkably, he could feel the presence of other architect ships scattered throughout the galaxy, dormant vessels waiting for human touch to awaken them. There are 47 ships within range of our current position, Jake reported to Admiral Stone during his first briefing as a Guardian. Each one is similar to the Sentinel, but specialized for different purposes. Some are built for exploration, others for construction, and a few are pure warships designed to fight enemies like the Devourers. Dr. Park had become the Guardian responsible for biological systems and was already using his enhanced abilities to develop new medical treatments. The healing technologies are beyond anything we imagined. I can cure genetic diseases with a touch and help injured tissue regenerate in minutes. But more importantly, I can sense when someone is about to become ill and prevent it before symptoms appear. Colonel Davis had taken charge of military applications and was working with the Sentinel's tactical systems to design new defensive strategies. The weapons are incredible, but they require a completely different approach to warfare. Instead of destroying enemies, many architect weapons disable them or convert their aggression into peaceful behavior. They were designed by a civilization that valued all life. Over the following months, Guardian teams traveled to other dormant architect ships and began awakening them. Each vessel that came online expanded humanity's capabilities and revealed new aspects of the ancient technology. Some ships could construct entire cities in a matter of days. Others could terraform barren worlds into gardens suitable for any form of life. The most advanced vessels could travel between galaxies and explore dimensions beyond normal space, but humanity wasn't the only species discovering architect ships. The Crystalline Collective, a peaceful race of silicon-based beings, had found 3 vessels in their territory and were learning to use them for environmental restoration. The aquatic depth swimmers had awakened a ship designed for ocean worlds, and were using it to heal their polluted seas. Not all discoveries were friendly. The Hegemony, a militant empire that controlled 30 star systems, had claimed 5 architect ships and was attempting to use them for conquest. Their leaders saw the ancient technology as proof that they were destined to rule the galaxy and began making aggressive moves against their neighbors. "We can't let them pervert the architect legacy like that," Lisa argued during a Guardian Council meeting. These ships were meant to protect life, not destroy it. Jake agreed but was cautious about direct confrontation. "We're still learning how to use this technology ourselves," A war with the hegemony now could cripple our preparations for the real threat. Echo had been monitoring the situation throughout the galaxy and provided regular updates on Devourer Scout movements. The alien probes had reached several inhabited systems and were systematically cataloging the technological capabilities of different species. Some civilizations had already detected the scouts and were trying to communicate with them, not understanding the danger they faced. The main Devourer force will arrive within 2 years, Echo announced during one of their briefings. They have learned that this galaxy now contains billions of intelligent beings and countless technological civilizations. This will attract them like nothing has since they first invaded millions of years ago. The first test of humanity's new capabilities came when Devourer scouts attacked a research station operated by the Crystalline Collective. The peaceful aliens sent a desperate plea for help, and Jake made the decision to respond with a Guardian fleet consisting of 12 architect ships under human command. The battle that followed was unlike anything in human military history. The Devourer scout ship was a massive creature that seemed to be part machine and part living organism. It absorbed energy weapons and grew stronger from conventional attacks, forcing the Guardians to use architect technology in ways they were still learning. Jake connected his consciousness directly to the Sentinel's weapons systems and found himself thinking in ways that were both human and something far more ancient. The ship's armaments didn't simply destroy the enemy but analyzed its nature and created targeted countermeasures. Instead of blowing apart the Devourer scout, the weapons disrupted its ability to consume energy and forced it to retreat back toward the galactic rim. It was studying us the same way we were studying it, Tony reported after the battle. The Devourers are learning from each encounter, adapting their capabilities to counter whatever they face. The victory was celebrated throughout the galaxy as proof that the younger races could defend themselves against the ancient threat. But Jake knew it was only the beginning. The scout they had fought was a tiny fraction of the force that was coming, and the Devourers would be ready for them. Next time, Admiral Stone arrived at the Sentinel a week after the battle to discuss humanity's next steps. The success against the Devourer scout had convinced even the most skeptical governments that the Guardian program was necessary, and volunteers were arriving from every nation on Earth. "How many Guardians do you think we'll need?" she asked Jake during their private meeting. Jake looked out at the stars through the ship's main viewport, his enhanced senses detecting the approach of dozens of human vessels carrying new recruits. "As many as we can train before the main force arrives. And even then, it might not be enough." The Devourer fleet that Eco's sensors detected at the galaxy's edge was vast beyond imagination. Thousands of massive ships accompanied by swarms of smaller vessels and creatures that existed partially outside normal space. Humanity had gained incredible power through their alliance with the Architect Legacy, but they were still just one species among many facing an enemy that had consumed entire galaxies. But they were no longer alone. The Guardian fleet was growing daily as more Architect ships awakened to human touch. Other species were joining the alliance, bringing their own unique capabilities to the defense of their shared galaxy. Most importantly, humanity had proven that they could use the Architect technology without losing their essential nature, maintaining the creativity and adaptability that Eco claimed made them special. Jake stood on the bridge of the Sentinel, watching as construction ships began building defensive platforms around inhabited worlds. Guardian academies were being established to train the next generation of defenders, and research teams were working to unlock the deepest secrets of Architect science. Humanity had awakened to find themselves guardians of an entire galaxy,